Happy Bibs Day, everybody. Well, it's Bibs Day, March 30th, and today it's just raining. So I'm probably not heading out to the garden today, but that's all right because there's a lot of things that need to be done on the inside of the house, and today's a great day to do them. So my understanding down in the pantry is that our baked beans, our sweet baked beans, vegan baked beans are getting low, and so I'm gonna go ahead and make that a priority today. I meant to start them soaking last night, Friday night, and have them soak overnight, and then I could can during the day today, but I didn't do that. I always pre-soak my beans. I like to make sure that I know the approximate volume of the bean I'm dealing with before I fill my jars, and I'll explain more about that process a little later. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around here, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to get started today to process several quarts of vegan baked or barbecue beans. I have two very large stainless steel bowls. These bowls are just such a necessity if you're going to do some canning, or at least I found them to be so. They're both 13 quart, and they're not always easy to get without having to pay a little bit of money. Now, one of them, I can't quite tell which one. I think the one on the right, we got at Goodwill for $6, or was it $8? So keep your eye out if you thrift shop. If you see a bowl like this and you think you might be doing some canning or harvesting of things from a garden, a large stainless steel bowl like this can just be a wonderful thing. So these are my stainless steel bowls, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a whole lot of beans in them. One of the things that I'm really just horrible about is I never really pay attention to how many beans I start when I start canning beans, and then I always end up with way more beans than I need. But what I do pay attention to is the ratio of beans, because I like certain flavors, and so with baked beans I love to have red beans and the northern beans. Now, the reason I use a mixture, because I just think it really gives more depth to the flavor. I always try to use mixtures when I'm canning items, if that's possible. It's recommended for canning apples that you have a couple of different varieties. It gives more dimension to the flavors, and I find it's also true for beans. So what I'm going to put in each bowl, let's see, I'm going to put 32 ounces of northern beans, and then I'm going to put looks like those 1 pound bags, so it looks like I'm gonna put 3 pounds of kidney beans, and then I'm gonna let these soak for probably 10 to 18 hours. Maybe I'll do a batch of beans tonight. I don't know, it depends on how late I stay up. Alright, so it's time to get these soaking. Got the beans soaking. What you'll notice is that I put enough beans to fill the bottom third, just under half maybe, of the bowl. And then I filled the rest of the bowl up with water. Now beans are really gonna swell quite a bit, and I always like to pre-soak my beans. I don't do the straight up dry bean method, and I'll share why a little later if you don't already know. But I like to pre-soak my beans, and what they do is they really increase in volume. Depending on your bean, they can increase in volume, you know, by as much as half, and sometimes even double their volume. So knowing the volume that your bean is gonna increase to is great with canning, but me, I just go ahead and I find that out in advance by making sure I pre-soak my beans. Another thing I'm going to say is while I've read over the USDA recommendations on how to can beans, I actually don't follow them 100%. I do follow them 100% on times and temperatures because you must kill the bacteria in your beans. But I'll be honest with you, I don't follow them entirely when it comes to recipe. And frequently recipe is a very important thing to follow, especially if aspects of your recipe such as salt or lemon juice are serving as preservatives. But that's not the case with beans. Beans you can with no salt, which I frequently do so that we can add spice later. And you don't generally add bean acid to the beans to can them because we pressure can them. So I do hot pack my beans, but I cook my my bean liquid, my molasses mixture, separate from the beans that I soak, and then I hot pack at the very last, cooking my beans in the canning process. I believe the USDA recommends that you cook your beans in the liquid and then can that mixture. Now, speaking of controlling the amount of liquid in the jars, this is my third batch of barbecue or baked beans, whatever you want to call them. My first batch turned out swimmingly. It had the perfect ratio of liquid to bean. My last batch did not turn out perfect. It had a great flavor, but there was way too much fluid in it. So this time I'm going to go back and look at my notes and see what I did for those two different batches and try to make sure that this time I get back to that good ratio of liquid to bean. All right, it's the evening of Bibs Day, March 30th. I've had a nice full day. We went shopping, did some yard work. I haven't gotten to the tomatoes yet. And the beans have been soaking all day. While the beans have been soaking and swelling up, I managed to get myself into another canning project that does not require soaking. I've got some beef in the canner right now. Let me show you what I've got going on. Alright, so here's 14 jars that I've cleaned real well and heated up, so hopefully I've killed most of the bacteria. And I put some clean lids on them, and I'll be using these in the morning. Over here are the beans. They've swelled up quite a bit. Got a perfect volume in each of these bowls. So I'll either start canning these tonight or early in the morning. And over here, for the first time ever, I have two canners going at one time. The canner on the left has 17 pints of beef. The canner on the right has a remaining 3 pints of beef and 2 pints of broth. And they're going to process for 75 minutes. All right, good morning. It's Bibs Day, March 31st, and I've already begun making the sauce for our baked beans, our vegan baked beans. The beans have been soaking since yesterday, and they have swelled up just fine. Let me show you. Here I have those beans that I put in water yesterday. They've soaked up a lot of moisture, and they are about at their full size now, and we're going to use these today to make some vegan baked beans. A nice mixture of red beans and northern beans. Here are some clean jars. And over on the stove here, I've already started the baked bean syrup. A lineup of some of the ingredients. Okay, I've got 2 canners going, so this is going to be 14 quarts of vegan baked beans. And it was a little close there. I had one spill where I had to stop and clean up a lot of sticky mess, and I'm going to have to go back again because it's sticky. And then I also came up 6, or was it almost 8 cups short, no, 6 cups short on my bean sauce. So I had to stop real quick, make a batch, a small batch of bean sauce. So we're gonna have a little inconsistency between these quarts, but that's okay. I mean, the thing about home canning is no 2 batches are gonna be the same. I have another 2 batches I'm gonna do this afternoon, and they're gonna be totally different than the one, you know, I just started today. All right, so here they are. Okay, I've got the 2 canners filled with quarts of baked beans, barbecue beans, vegan baked beans, and they're both coming up to heat. They're on high right now. The one on the left has already started venting. I'll need to vent both of them for about 10 minutes. The reason we vent the canners of atmosphere is all those other gases in the atmosphere don't have the same heat capacity as water does. Water has a really good heat capacity, so if we make sure to vent out all the regular atmosphere, leaving only steam in there, actual water vapor, that water vapor is what's going to carry us up to the high temperatures when we put it under high pressure. So right now we're venting it all out, and we're bringing it all up to temperature, and then when I check back with you, we'll put weights on it. Okay, the canner is finished processing. The vegan baked beans have been processing for 75 minutes, and now begins the very slow cool down process. Canning takes a lot of time, and so it's really easy to get discouraged about how it might take, 3 hours from start to finish on a batch of beans. However, it gets easier if you do it a little bit more. It becomes less of a labor-intensive thing, and you can do other things while your beans are cooking. Right now, we have 14 quarts that are in the canner. On any given evening, we might eat 2 quarts as a family of beans with some cornbread. So basically in 3 hours, I've prepared about 7 meals. While it may take a lot of time to go from start to finish on a batch of beans, you end up actually making several meals at once. So in the end, you might be saving time by putting a lot of time in up front. All right, so I'm going to turn you over to look at the beans and see what I'm doing next to set up my second batch. So these are beginning the slow cool down process. There is no way right now I will take these weights off the top of these canners. Right now inside these canners, it's between 8 and 10 pounds of pressure per square inch. And when you look at how small of a nozzle that is, that's a pretty intense bit of pressure that if I were to take and remove those weights, that would be very suddenly lost. So I have to let these cool down naturally and slowly. Reason being is the cans on the inside, glass jars actually, are at that very high pressure. And if I were to suddenly bring them down to atmosphere pressure, there would be a big mess inside those canners. It would be, as they say, a bean rocket. Beans all over the place. Over here, I've already started cleaning up from last night's canning of beef. I've cleaned those rings off. They're sitting out to dry. I've got the ingredients out for the next batch of sauce. Here's my journal where I've made adaptations to the recipe. And in reflection, I'm remembering a few things that I might not have done. I know for sure I did not put 3.5 cups of molasses in. So I'm refiguring my liquids just to be sure I have enough this time.